Dallas Cowboys fans, the American economy, and my tummy upset. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. You made it to the end of the week. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from ESPN Central Texas. Thank you for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. Good to have you. Another good week. All the expansion stuff and all that jazz, and stuff about Lincoln Riley being a complete asswipe and other things that have happened in the Big 12 that we love. This week, I have curated 3 upsets that I think are going to happen. Now, whoa. 2 things you're thinking right here. First, I can't wait for him to get these wrong so I can rub it in on Twitter. 2 things there. Number 1, that's rude. Number 2, it's called X. That is not how we're going to play this game. I am coming to you, putting my neck on the line. Is that the phrase? I'm sticking my neck out, putting my credibility on the line here to pick 3 upsets. I can't do it every week. Can't be like, here's 3 upsets every week. The 3 upsets aren't going to happen every week, probably. Those are tough things to pick. Upsets are upset because they're not supposed to happen, right? So these are the toughest things to give you. So I'm going to pick 3 upsets today because I think there are 3 upsets this week. I do. And odds are very high that I'm going to be wrong. And if I pick your team to get upset and I don't, you have every right to come after me. I'm a man. I'm 22. Fine. But I'm going to bring you 3 upsets today that I foresee happening in the Big 12. The first of them being BYU over Kansas. And again, some Kansas fans are going to start screaming and throwing things across the table, floor, wherever you throw things. So mad, angry. And here's what I have to tell you. Kansas just beat Nevada by 7. Nevada is not good. BYU just went on the road and knocked off an SEC opponent in a night game. One of the top 10 attendances at this SEC school in its history. BYU walked in there with a team that has question marks, with a team that many of its own fans have doubted can be bowl caliber this season, with a team that many people in the national media have said is just not going to get it done in the Big 12 yet this year, that so many had at the bottom of their power rankings at the beginning of the season, and they have impressed people. BYU just went on the road to Arkansas, an SEC team, and won. And what did I pick last week? An upset, a road upset. I had the BYU Cougars beating Arkansas in Fayetteville. And guess what happened to that very thing? So why would I not ride the hot hand? You sit at the blackjack table, guy to your left is playing blackjack with you, and he's doing blackjack stuff. And you're like, I'm going to start following that guy. He has the hot hand. Obviously, I've never played blackjack. I have no idea if that's how it goes. But ride the hot hand. Kedon Slovis. Good at the whole quarterback thing. 660 yards, 6 touchdowns through his first 3 games. That's pretty solid. Went on the road and beat Arkansas last week. Again, as I've mentioned a billion times on this show. Had 160 yards, a couple of touchdowns, 13 for 25. 13 for 25 is not great. He's not an elite quarterback, by the way. Be honest with ourselves. Jayden Daniels is the better quarterback who's going to play in this game, for sure. Jalen Daniels the best quarterback. Devin Neal's probably the best athlete in this game. However, the BYU defense is vastly improved compared to last season. The BYU offense is good. The Kansas offense just surrendered 24 points to Nevada. Ooh. They played Illinois really well. The offense was good against Illinois, obviously. A home game. Kansas played well at home. Wins against Illinois and Missouri State. In this, though, I think what pushes the needle for me, who has a better offense? Kansas. Who has a better defense? Brigham Young University. What in this game is going to matter the most? Well, defense travels. I do know that much. Kansas is at home. The Kansas offense is really good. They're going to score a lot of points. The BYU offense can at some points be handicapped. They didn't score a lot of points against Sam Houston State, but I started thinking, well, they did score 38 points on the road against an SEC opponent. They scored 41 points against Southern Utah. That's not saying much. But this BYU team's offense has a good upside. The Kansas defense, to me, that's been fine. It's been good. It's been improved. Those words all apply. But is it good enough to win against a BYU team who just beat Arkansas? I don't think so. My number 1 upset, BYU over Kansas. It's going to happen. My number 2 upset. How about Iowa State losing to Oklahoma State? Here is the one that you're just like, yeah, well, yeah. Neither team is going to want to win this game. Oklahoma State, bad at football right now. Iowa State, bad at football right now. I still think Oklahoma State wins at least 7 games. Baffling, I know, as terrible as they are, and as bad as Mike Gundy wants to lose. He really, really wants to lose. But their schedule's stupid easy. I like the Ollie Gordon dude. Is he hurt? What's going on there? I mean, I'd have to Google that. What is the deal with Ollie Gordon? Because to me, he could be one of the best backs in the league. But we don't see a lot of Ollie Gordon. Why? We should see more of him. Plus, he's, we hide an injury here. If he comes out and plays like he should, he'll be the best player on the field for either of these offenses, 100%. Alan Bowman sucks. Beck sucks. Neither of these offenses are good. Oklahoma State's obviously going to cover 3.5. Somebody just has to do enough. You hand the ball to Ollie Gordon, and he's going to do enough. Final score, 7-0, Oklahoma State. 7-3 if you want. Iowa State just put up 7 points against literally Ohio. Oregon State at least scored 27 on the road against a Power 5 team in Arizona State. So get in a battle of two bad teams, give me Oklahoma State. That's the Oregon State. Give me Oklahoma State if I did. Either way. Go Pokes, I guess. My third upset, and this is the crazy one. You're all going to scream. Cincinnati is going to beat Oklahoma this week. I know the world's going to burn, absolutely burn. Oklahoma 3-0. They bowled through most of their competition. The only game they struggled with was SMU at home. Cincinnati, they beat Pitt on the road. Awesome win. Then came home and lost at overtime to Miami of Ohio. This Cincinnati team reminds me of a team that I grew up watching. It was like 2016 Arkansas. They lost to Toledo that year. Then they gave Alabama a run for its money. Then they beat Auburn. And they beat a bunch of teams they weren't supposed to beat. They lost to a bunch of teams they were not supposed to lose to. They were back and forth, wishy-washy. Cincinnati reminds me of that. And Oklahoma reminds me of the same Oklahoma we've got in the last couple of years, which is, oh, look, good non-conference. Nicely done, Oklahoma. Against easy teams, you took care of business. And then the first time conference play slaps them in the face, like a Kansas State game the last few years, has been like, well, there you go. They lose that. This is your Kansas State game. This is the kryptonite. Big 12 play opens. Cincinnati's not that good. We all say, we were high on them last week in Emory Jones, but now we're not anymore. Not so fast, my friends. Dylan Gabriel comes out. Maybe he gets hurt. Maybe he gets. I'm not going to wish it on the kid. But this is what Oklahoma does. I told you what BYU does. Some teams have a brand. Some teams have a brand that they stick to. What BYU does is they lose to a team the first year they play them, and the second year they beat them. They adjust. What Oklahoma does is they get to conference play and decide, not for me. I'll just take the early loss. They were so bad last year. We are forgetting how really bad Oklahoma was last year. Let's all look back to how terrible the Sooners were and think, this really isn't as crazy as we're making it out to be. I've got Cincinnati beating Oklahoma this weekend. It doesn't make sense, no. But does any college football upset make sense? No. And somebody out there has to be bold enough, have the gumption, cojones, to pick it. And I do. BYU over Kansas. Oklahoma State is going to beat Iowa State. And the Cincinnati Bearcats, cringing as I say it, will beat Oklahoma at home. Welcome to the Big 12, the Dose Grande. It's going to be wild this weekend. On Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is sponsored by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. One of the things that I love is dogs. One of the things I also love, LinkedIn Talent Solutions. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes war, right? You're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do to hire this person? You want to be 100% certain you got the right candidate. That's why you go to LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. As free as it gets. I went to LinkedIn Talent Solutions, hired an intern. She's been great, spectacular. A lot of the shorts that you see, a lot of the tweets that you see, especially the good ones, are all from her. Thank you, Brooklyn. Add your job, purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools, screening questions, and they make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you like to interview and hire. Small businesses rate LinkedIn number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to and faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Lincoln Riley sucks. We remind ourselves of this very often. Oklahoma fans, are you with me? BYU Big 12 fans who have been here for a while, are you with me? Lincoln Riley is just kind of a weird dude. And he does some stuff where you're like, gross. Offensive genius, sure. I'll give him that. I will reluctantly give him that. Defensive guru, of course not. Of course not. Ability to woo a crowd and be kind of cringy in the process, absolutely. Good guy? I don't think so. I don't think so. You saw how he cooked his brisket. That was bad. Number one. Now he comes after the media. Have you seen this? There's a reporter who apparently was asking questions after he come off the podium a couple weeks ago, and he didn't like that very much. And then this week, the reporter wrote an article that described about how one of the USC football players is having a conversation with the player off camera right before he walks up at the podium, and he kind of asks his buddy to, hey, cheer me on, or the player was nervous to go in front of the media, and this reporter at USC used it in his story, this little anecdote in his story, that, as he walked to the podium, he looked to his other teammate and said, wish me luck, or he seemed intimidated as he went in front of the cameras, which is something we totally write about, right? It's a great way to start a story. You paint a picture of, hey, this kid was super scared, came to the podium, then he was confident, then, here's kind of the vibe you're getting from this guy going into this week's game. And some of you will make the case, be like, oh, he's a 21-year-old or he's a 20-year-old. And like, yeah, but also he's a college football player who's going in front of he's being sent in front of the media by the media handlers, these teams, the SIDs. And for this guy to write this thing, it's not abnormal. At worst, you could scold him a little bit. Be like, hey, man, don't write about that. Don't worry about the kid being nervous. Exclude that. Sure, maybe I can vibe with you there. But no, not USC. They will not vibe with you. They said, boop, your credentials are revoked. This reminds me a lot of, was it OU Daily? There were student media people at Oklahoma that were not spying on practice. They were just from an adjacent roof watching Oklahoma practice, the OU Daily newspaper, and noticed some things and reported on those things. And Oklahoma lost it. They went nuts. I'm like, well, we're hanging out we're just looking at what is right here. But Lincoln Riley runs a tight ship. He doesn't want anybody to see anything. Very secretive. And he makes a big deal out of things that shouldn't be a big deal. Does he seem like a drama queen to you? Now, there are some people who do it, and they do it well. Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin has this drama queen thing to him where you're like, just Lane Kiffin trying to poke the bear, trying to stoke the fire every now and then. This is kind of dramatic, right? He likes to be a little flashy. But at the end of the day, whiskey's in hand, just me and Lane Kiffin hanging out. I bet he's a pretty cool dude. And you know that. You bet the exact same thing. End of the day, whiskey in hand, me and Lincoln Riley are sitting around the fire, and I'm thinking, this dude stinks a little bit. Literally and figuratively, I heard he smells so bad. I've heard from people that he smells terrible. And I don't understand as a head coach, I think as a public figure, you are called to a different standard of level-headedness, of consistency, because he just seems like a paranoid character. Like he's always paranoid about something. Dude, what? What are we doing revoking credentials for, I think it's for 2 weeks, with this reporter, because he's just writing about what he sees. What you have put in front of him, by the way. What you and your media people and the SIDs and the handlers and whatever have put in front of this reporter is what he's writing about. Makes no sense in my brain why you'd be pissed off to the point where you pull this guy's credentials. As somebody who's been in some credential trouble before, athletic departments can do that whenever they want. They can pull your credentials for whatever they want. This being utterly, entirely asinine. Bush League, Lincoln Riley. But as we've learned from Oklahoma, the transition from OU to USC, he keeps doing interviews with people talking about how, but the thing a couple weeks ago where he's like, yeah, people tried to rob me. People were breaking into my house, and the Norman police were like, no, they weren't. That's not true. Yeah, there wasn't really anything real there. I don't know, man. You just would think at some point that Lincoln Riley would be adult about a lot of things, because he keeps doing interviews just to stir stuff up about Oklahoma. What's the point, dude? Give up. You don't coach there anymore. I don't know, man. We could let bygones be bygones, but that dude stinks. I stand by that. Right here on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Do you ever get excited about making money Also, watch Locked On College Football Kickoff live today if you haven't already. It's on your channel, Central Time. It's like 10 to 12. You'll love it. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose, $200. You've been thinking about joining FanDuel? No better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is easy to use. Download it on your iPhone, Android, whatever you got. Spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NFL. Friday Mailbag starts with the BYU Cougars. This is a new thing I'm going to do. A lot of BYU fans got in on this. A little caveat here. If you're a BYU fan, thank you. If you're someone who's not a BYU fan, step up your game. Jacob says, my biggest concern as a BYU fan right now is if Kansas fans are meanies. My brother-in-law got cussed out by Coastal Carolina fans in 2020. Jacob, first and foremost, I just want to say I'm sorry to your brother. I do not condone what the Chanticleer fans did to you in 2020 and your brother by cussing him out. That was immature and terrible. And I hope you're okay. Second, I do think Kansas fans are meanies. I've seen a lot of this. The banter on Twitter between Kansas and BYU fans has been legendary. I want to commend Kansas fans. I want to commend BYU fans for making hilarious stuff this week. There's a BYU guy who drove his plane. It said, beat Kansas with the BYU logo. That was legendary. Kansas fans talking about Mormons going on mission. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, members of the LDS community going on mission, and most of them have been in good fun, have been kind-hearted memes they send, BYU, of course, they have a leg up. They got a bunch of 24-year-olds out there who went on mission. I think those are spectacular. A lot of what they've done has been in good, positive jest. So do want to say, Jacob, thank you for tuning in here, that I am very excited with this new little fun rivalry that BYU and Kansas have struck up on social media. Nick Lee says, biased as a BYU fan, but I think people are sleeping on Kedon Slovis. It's clear that it was bad Pitt and not him last year. BYU seems to be getting more the USC version. While stats are not eye-popping, he made elite throws against Arkansas. Poised, where does he rank among Big 12 QBs? Poised is the right word here. Now, while he made some eye-popping throws, there were also some who were like, oh, Kedon, right? 12 incompletions to 13 completions. It's not elite. I don't think Kedon Slovis is an elite quarterback. However, I do want to say he's not USC Kedon Slovis. You're not making that case, I know. He's not USC Kedon Slovis, and he's not Pitt Kedon Slovis. He's BYU Kedon Slovis. Let's change this narrative here. Good quarterback. Elite quarterback? No. Top 5 quarterback in the Big 12? Yes. Because you look around the league and you see a lot of teams that don't have a good quarterback. Texas Tech right now, no proven good quarterback. Not this season. Baylor, no. Houston, no. Oklahoma State, of course not. And those are power teams that are supposed to win. A couple of them at least. So Kedon Slovis, top 5, without a doubt. A couple of texts in here. You can text the show anytime you want. 254-300-7617. 254-300-7617. That's my number. Just text my number. I don't care. I'm not to be hotshot here. 254-300-7617. Love this one from Scotty B. the Baylor King. Concern is for the Big 12 in traveling terms of miles to be divided nearly even or exactly even, not just in terms of football or basketball, but all sports that play each other on campus in terms of scheduling conference games. Important to be fair to all teams. Great point. One thing that we overlook, and thank you, Scotty, for texting. One thing we overlook in this whole deal is how teams, like cross-country teams, will travel through expansion. Because that's a point that we haven't brought up, and one that we talk about mental health all the time. We've got a kid that never goes to class because their cross-country team is traveling across the country all the time. Their tennis team's traveling across the country all the time. How do we divvy up the miles for these programs? How do we put it together where it's fair for every team in the Big 12? Because it's going to be different for West Virginia and the Arizona schools or Utah than it is for a Texas Tech. I mean, Texas Tech, you have Oklahoma State, which is fairly close. TCU, close enough, I guess. Baylor and Houston are at least within your same state, but it's still a good distance. And then they're pretty close to Utah and Arizona State. Tech kind of lucks out in this whole deal. Then there's UCF. What is UCF close to? If you were a student athlete at UCF, I got a couple of friends who are baseball players down in Orlando. If you're a baseball player there, you've accepted that going to the Big 12, going to UCF means a whole lot of travel for you and your family, and you're going to have less opportunities to play in front of your family. Unless your family wants to travel all around the country with you, this is going to be tough expansion of the new Big 12 for the student athlete. The burden is heavy. The load is heavy to travel in this conference now, as it has been for a while in a couple different conferences, especially as things have moved to be less regional. Good for the SEC. They kind of get to keep that. But at the same time, Florida traveling to Texas, that's the same as Orlando traveling, UCF traveling to play Baylor. That happens. I just hope we don't have UCF playing road games against Utah, BYU, Arizona State, and Texas Tech all in one season. That would suck. Thanks, Scotty. Good text. This one says, "You're the man." It's from Scott Taylor in Chandler, Arizona. Thank you, Scott. Loves the Big 12 podcast. Hold his non-alcoholic beer. And he likes that I cover BYU. You're welcome. He also is spreading word about the show. Sent a fun picture of him and what I think is his family as well, which is very nice. I enjoy this. There was not a question here. Scott was just saying, good job. I like your podcast. Scott, makes my day really happy. Good to have you here, Scott. From Chandler, Arizona. It's one of our big listener points is over there in Arizona. This one, last one here, last text. Well, Mr. Drake. Never been called Mr. This is big. The Cougars are excited to have you in Provo next weekend. That's right. We're a week away from me being in Provo, Utah, BYU, Cincinnati. We appreciate the love. My question for the podcast is, as of today, who do you see playing in the Big 12 championship game? Is there any chance it's not Texas and OU? I can guarantee you, anonymous caller, it will not be Texas and OU. That will not be the Big 12 championship game. No, sir. It will not. I don't think OU gets there. At this point, I would be an idiot to say that Texas doesn't. Do I believe my heart of hearts? Could I bet $1 million right now, $100, $10 right now that Texas will make the Big 12 championship? The answer is no. The answer is absolutely no. There's still a good part of me that thinks they're going to find a way to screw this up. I can't believe it till I see it done because they haven't done it yet. Every year there's Texas is back. Even through a few games, we say Texas is back. Remember that year they beat Notre Dame? Oh, Texas is back. Here they go. They haven't been. That was Charlie Strong era. So I don't believe it yet. I need to see them in Arlington, close to Arlington, to be like, okay, all right, fine. This is real. This is me. This is happening in front of me. Otherwise, I struggle to predict it. They're the best roster in the Big 12. And I will predict it. I mean, I will. I'll reluctantly, okay, fine. But in my heart of hearts, I just feel like they're going to find a way to screw it up. Right now, I do have Texas in the Big 12 championship. But on the road, beat Alabama. Now, Oklahoma won't make it. Kansas State will. The Wildcats get it done. I still have so much faith in Chris Kleiman. I have so much faith in Will Howard. And I understand that they struggled in a loss to Missouri. Road game, SEC. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. Kansas State, Texas. Big 12 championship. That's what I have right now. They're still undefeated in Big 12 play. Both teams are. That probably stays the same after this weekend as well, I would assume. UCF's a tough game. I think they'll struggle. Texas shouldn't struggle with Baylor. But in all here, Oklahoma does not make it. Anonymous texter. Texas probably does. This has been, it always will be. I'll see you on Saturday or Sunday or whenever I do a podcast next because we got a big weekend coming up. It's awesome. Big 12 plays here on Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. You know what's coming next. Say it with me. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Dose Grande.